Okay, gotcha. Oh.
And I didn't know, is our video shown in this? I don't know.
No, okay. And I'm not sure people might be able to hear us even now too, but
I assume they can. Do we have to let people in? Is that one of these things? Oh, there's the people joining.
hey everyone, this is Jeff with rezStream. We'll wait here we got one more minute till officially start, but we'll wait just a couple of minutes to make sure we don't have any last minute stragglers, but otherwise we'll try to start fairly soon. Thanks and hang tight. Okay, so being it is 1 minute after, as far as at least my clock is concerned, we'll get started. There'll probably be a few more stragglers, but that's fine. My name is Jeff with rezStream, and I have also Jeff with Stash Rewards. I'm going to let him mostly drive this, but this might be the first in a series where we kind of partner up with some other businesses that can help drive revenue for businesses and help businesses out. But so we have Jeff Lowe. Jeff Lowe started Stash Rewards about 10 years ago with a group of friends from Microsoft, Amazon, and Zillow. And before that, he actually worked at Expedia, where he created the first loyalty program for an OTA. Currently lives in Menlo Park, California, with his wife and 3 children. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. Well, maybe a couple of quick housekeeping things. You should have a Q&A option in your Zoom, so feel free to start typing some questions as they come up. I believe we'll have one or two breaks maybe to answer questions along the way, and for sure at the end we'll have some questions. And if you have any questions for rezStream related, I think we can field that too. So with that, I will turn it over to Jeff. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. I was just thinking, Jeffs are really a name of the 70s. There are no more Jeff, right?
Yep.
Jeffs and Karens and Stacy's. I'm married to a Stacy. There's no more Stacy's, right? You know exactly when someone was born. So welcome everyone, and thank you, Jeff, for inviting us to join. I've made everyone turned on talking for everyone since it's a small group. So feel free to just jump in. You can certainly type in questions, or you can just ask them directly. I think everyone's muted, but you can certainly add in. You can just jump in. The more conversational this is, the better, and the less it'll be a monologue from me. So Jeff and I were talking about what would be most useful to rezStream partners in terms of loyalty and what we could share. And I thought, I've been thinking about this for a long time, hotel loyalty, and I thought I could share some general findings on the impact of loyalty in hospitality specifically, and then speak to how Stash has helped hotels like those that work with rezStream in a number of different ways. My background, just quickly, as Jeff mentioned, I was at Expedia, where I started their loyalty program. And I usually start off by apologizing, because when you're at Expedia, you don't realize how people feel about Expedia. And then only when leaving, when talking to hoteliers, you realize just that the partnership is really not perceived in the way that folks at Expedia might imagine. It's not balanced, and Expedia takes a lot of revenue that I don't think it deserves. And certainly one of our goals is to help rebalance that equation and put the bomb back in the box. I think the guy who invented the A-bomb spent the rest of his life trying to promote nuclear disarmament. So that's my penance in life as well. So as Jeff mentioned, so Stash started launched 10 years ago with a bunch of folks who had worked at Expedia and elsewhere. We thought about, why had this not been done before? It's sort of an obvious idea. Loyalty programs have been proven to be very useful in a number of different ways. And the question sat out there is, why was there not a program for independent hotels, which we soon discovered. I compare it to like a solar car. Like, a solar car is such a great idea. How come there isn't a solar car? Well, because the panel would have to be the size of a football field, right? Well, how come there hadn't been a loyalty program for independent hotels? Two things. The technology is complicated. There's so many different PMS and CMS systems that would have to integrate, and you certainly couldn't go to an independent hotel and say you must move to this platform. So we solved that by hiring smart folks from those technology companies I mentioned. And so as a result, Stash works with any of the major and increasingly nearly all of the PMS systems that independent hotels use. And then the second part we discovered was that it's hard to gather independent hotels together, because many are the greatest hotel in the world in their mind, and they look across the avenue, or they look across their city or across the country and say, well, that hotel's not as great as my hotel, and why would I want to be in a program like that? And putting the program together was a series of conversations of gathering hoteliers, and many would peel off with that feeling. And you can imagine who those hoteliers might be. We started, talking to hoteliers, one of whom said, how much are you going to pay me to be in the program, because his hotel was so great. And ultimately it was a set of what we call visionary hoteliers who said, look, we don't, even when we're in the same city, sure, we're competing with each other, but we're really competing with the Westins and the Marriotts in the city. And they're the ones who are eating our lunch. And only by working together can we start to develop the economies of scale and the market presence that the major chains have with their programs. So I want to start off, I've talked at a number of conferences, and there's always the debate of our points and loyalty the same thing, or our rewards and loyalty the same thing. And they're not, right? People are loyal to your properties because of the guest experience. And that's why they keep coming back. Can points and rewards help? Certainly. And they also function in different ways that can enhance that loyalty, but also help core economic drivers of the business and important dynamics of the booking process that can be incredibly expensive for hoteliers. So I like to say, think of who you are truly loyal to. And one way to think about it is what brand would you tattoo, or what brand would you put on your car? You see the Apple sticker, the Harley Davidson tattoos. People who do CrossFit won't stop talking about CrossFit. None of those have loyalty programs, right? Those brands connect with people in a different way, in the same way that many of our partners connect with their guests. So again, loyalty is not making that connection, but loyalty can sync people and guide people to aggregate their spend with a single provider of travel in particular. For example, I will go out of my way to fly Alaska Airlines. I will pay $20 more because I'm part of their program and because of the benefits it affords me. So some of the key ways that loyalty programs help hotels, and this is not just Stash, this is across the board, is one, driving direct bookings. The number one reason people book direct is to earn points, and which is why chain hotels typically have an OTA share of less than 10%, while independent hotels have OTA shares often 25% or higher. I mean, we've seen 30%. We've talked to a hotel recently that was at 60%. And if that's all a loyalty program did, if the only thing it did was get people to book direct, that's a powerful medicine that could stand on itself. Again, I know that of which I speak. Expedia is a tick on the back of hoteliers. They provide nothing to the value, to the equation of delivering of the guest experience. They buy keywords in front of your name using the revenue they're taking from you, and are just a tax in the system. And no question, they operate as a duopoly in that between Booking and Expedia, they own every single OTA out there. Guests don't know that. They don't know that you're paying 18% every time they book through Expedia. And there's no way, of course, to guide them to do that through pricing. Loyalty programs are incredibly helpful in attracting new guests. Finding people who would love your hotel, but don't know about it yet because you're not part of a giant brand, or you don't have the marketing scale or frankly the money, again, to compete with Expedia, who's buying your keywords. Loyalty programs and Stash in particular helped small hotels compete with the big chains. Increasingly, the chains have realized that people don't want that cookie cutter experience. So now they're creating, either they're buying up brands like Hyatt buying IHG bought Kimpton, of course, and then Hyatt bought Commune, which was part of Thompson, which was part of JDV, right? So they all have these fake independent collections, which of course is a misnomer. Or they also then create their, what we call faux-tiques of like their fake independent brands. And consumers often don't know the difference, but it's something that drives us crazy, frankly, and it probably drives you crazy. And then, of course, loyalty programs, or sometimes called frequency programs, bring guests back. And There have been studies done that show that that actually occurs, and it's measurable, and it can be significant. Just touching on that last point, there was a study done of hotel loyalty programs by Cornell that showed that you had two people who were statistical twins in terms of how they traveled prior to one given the choice to join a loyalty program. The hotel guests, so let's say they both stayed at the hotel 10 times a year. One of them joined the hotel's loyalty program and subsequently stayed 50% more often and spent $780 more per year. That had never been measured before in hotels, in hospitality, in loyalty period. In this one paper of the year a couple of years ago, and was the first time that this could be observed, because again, what these smart professors did is they created a control group, a statistical control group, because otherwise, of course, you'd say, well, there's self-selection and those that are traveling the most are going to join the loyalty program, which is true. But even when they found two sets of people who traveled the most, and one joined, one didn't, and they saw that change. Something we often hear from independent hoteliers is, but my guests don't care about points. They especially ultra luxe hotel groups will think that points are sort of crass, or that has nothing to do with their guests. And we found that that's actually not the case based on data and studies others have done. For example, millennials, there's so much talk about millennials wanting experience, and that's what's most important. It turns out millennials will go out of their way to stay at a hotel where they can earn points. They'll pay $40 more, $41 more. And of course, that's particularly going to be the case when these are business travelers for whom the $40 more isn't coming out of their pocket. Another group that's often talked about as not caring about points are the affluent travelers. By the way, if you can name all three of the references I have here, you can get 500 points, 1,000 points. You just have to submit them to Jeff at the end. Hard to get a good, clean picture of these two. And why did they bring so many jewels and so much cash to the island? No, for a 3-hour trip, I don't know. Affluent travelers, right? Who's at Costco at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning? It's the millionaire next door. Wealthy folks are often wealthy because they have discipline about how they spend money, and it's a focus of, it's an important part of their lives. And affluent travelers can be very, very focused on earning their points. And this is particularly the case with small business owners we've seen, where they'll put all their expenses on a single credit card so that they can use those points for the travel that they then take their family on. So 87% of affluent travelers said earning points is very important. And then finally, road warriors this is somewhat obvious, and this movie was entirely about a loyalty program, Up in the Air, which was the sad story of a consultant who travels around the world firing people, I think, and was obsessed with earning Hilton points. I don't know if you've seen this movie, it's only Hilton everywhere. And he's a master traveler and sits in the bar or at dinner and just talks about loyalty programs. And I was a consultant one long summer during business school, and that is true. That is what we would do. We'd go out to dinner and just talk about loyalty programs. And I'm so glad I chose not to be a consultant for among other reasons. And so this is the currency of their lives, and it's also a game, right? It's who gets to stand in that special line when they're boarding on United Airlines. Who gets to stand on the rug? Going back to that idea, though, what is a frequent traveler? Because we talk so much about how important they are. And we have found as well, looking into the data, there's actually no standard definition of this. Some have suggested it's the number of miles you fly. Others have said, oh no, it's the number of rooms, nights you stay in a hotel every year. But if you look in the dictionary, there's actually no definition there. There's just a blank spot. People use the term point junkie, road warrior. I'd say there was no definition until now. We have actually found what we think now is the definitive the new definition of what a frequent traveler is. And here's what it is. You're a frequent traveler when your 4-year-old son says this to your wife. When is daddy visiting again? Which is, this still chokes me up. This is what my son said to my wife, because when we were starting Stash, here's my son. He was cute then. He's not that cute anymore. And because I was traveling all around the country, and he thought I lived somewhere else. He thought I lived maybe in an airplane or in a hotel, and he was excited that I may come and visit. And that is a driving factor in what these programs, why these programs are relevant, because you miss the Pinewood Derby and you miss the recital, but you're going to make it up to your kids and your family and be the hero because you're going to take them to Disneyland. And that's why points are so important. And it's the reason that a hotel without points, no matter how great it is, it doesn't matter how great its TripAdvisor ratings are, you're not competing with the Westin. You're not competing with, the Marriott. You're competing with that person's kids, and you lose every time because they're not going to make that trade-off. For example, I go to Seattle often. There's a set of wonderful hotels there, all independent. The Lodge at St. Edward's Park, it used to be a monastery off in the woods near Seattle. Hotel Andra, Cedarbrook Lodge, which was rated #1 out of 53,000 hotels on TripAdvisor, I think in 2012. And then at the Island Inn at 123 West, a cool little studio in the San Juan Islands. For a frequent traveler, these don't offer points. And so they're not going to get them to Disneyland, and then they're haunted by Nick saying, you missed that. You missed it, Dad. You're not gonna, you can't make it up to me. And so they can't attract those business travelers, which means to that business traveler, they're not even seen, right? They're not even in the consideration set, which is a huge problem if you're a hotel. Imagine, well, you all live this life. Imagine if every day half of your customers wouldn't even consider buying your product, because while business travelers represent 10% of all travelers, they represent about close to 50% of all room nights. These are the consultants. These are the folks who are, platinum on United. And they're the ones who are rolling their suitcases past your hotel. Now, I know many of the folks on the call, their hotels aren't in cities, right, where this is certainly more prevalent. But you'll be surprised that even though I may have a winery in California, I may not be competing with a Marriott in that town, but there is a Marriott in Napa that the person will go to instead because it's part of Autograph now. And so even though your chain competition may not be right next door, it may not be right next door to you. We've thought a lot about independent hotels over this period. And one of the reasons that we do what we do and why we were led in this direction is we love independent hotels. We think when you travel, you want to experience, stay at a place that reflects the culture and the architecture and the spirit of that location, right? You don't want to go to New Orleans and stay at a Four Points. And you don't want to go to Belize and stay at a Courtyard by Marriott. Yet both of those places, of course, have chain properties where the chain will commit to you. Their brand commitment is that it'll be the exact same experience in any place that you go to. Despite that strength that independents have of creating a more distinctive experience and being objectively better, objectively meaning if you look at the top hotels on TripAdvisor, on Condé Nast Travelers lists, on any lists of the best hotels, the most loved hotels, 90+% will turn out to be independent hotels. Despite that, independent hotels are literally disappearing. In 1988, it was 56, 44% independents versus chains. Now it's about closer to 75-25. And I read recently that 90% of the hotels in development right now are chain affiliated. So there's a disappearance, in the same way that there are small towns in America or towns in America where there is no independent coffee shop anymore. And our view is that something's really lost when that occurs, right? The spread of generica across our country is a shame. So we see the independent hotel as David in this situation, right? They're against two giant forces. They're against two Goliaths, not just one. The chains, who again are increasingly moving into their space, and then the OTAs, who have enormous monopolistic power. And as you may know, the Goliaths have now joined together. Marriott is so huge now that they've gone to the OTAs and said, we're not going to pay 18%, we'll pay 11%. And by the way, you can't buy our keywords anymore. So where will Expedia get their additional revenue? How are they going to continue to grow? They're going to come to the independents and continue to extract more and more from you all. So in this battle, David wins. David beats Goliath because he's more nimble, he's smarter, as we feel independent hotels are, right? They don't have to follow giant guidebooks. They're run by real people, often owner-operators. And that's a huge advantage. They can connect with guests in the ways that chains simply can't. But they are missing that tool. And we see Stash as that tool. We are the sling, which is what allowed David to win against Goliath in this battle. Before I go into Stash, are there any questions about loyalty programs and data on the impact of loyalty programs, some of which I'll fold into the further presentation, but as my team will tell you, I can go on and on about the underlying dynamics of loyalty programs and studies done about them. I think everyone is available to talk. Let me see. Oh, I'll make some others. There's so much power here, I can allow people to talk. So anyone can chime in or post a question. Otherwise, I'll keep going. So again, we were launched 10 years ago. We currently have about 180 independent hotels across the US, Central America, and the Caribbean. We could have 5 times that number. But since the beginning, one of the questions when we were gathering these hotels around the table was, well, we would say, we are not a brand. We're not a brand. We are an ingredient, functional attribute. We're like Intel Inside or Gore-Tex. We're a measure of quality and an attribute people are looking for. Still, there's a sense that there's a brand element to Stash. And so the concern of the hotels we started with was, well, what is the next hotel you're going to bring in? And will it be as phenomenal as ours? So that was one of the commitments we made early on. And indeed, since we've started, we have been maniacally focused on only adding what we call the most loved hotels to Stash. Just 1 out of 10 hotels that reach out to us make that cut. The average TripAdvisor rating of a Stash partner is somewhere between 4.5 and 5. We've added, I think, 50 hotels this year. The majority, 60+%, have a perfect 5.0 on TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is not a perfect rating, but it's pretty good. And of course, we check that against other measures of quality. But we are much more focused on user reviews than white glove star rating reviews, which we feel are from another century. So our partners are across the US, Central America, the Caribbean, and as of this morning, the Cook Islands we just joined. Stash is like other programs in the base functionality. You stay at one of the participating hotels, you earn 5 points per dollar, and then you can redeem those points at any hotel in the network. But we like to think about this as we went and we took, say, I loved Starwood Preferred Guests. I thought it was a great program, and we extracted it out of Starwood and made it better in a number of ways, both for the for the traveler and for the hotel. Travelers, what did they hate about typical loyalty programs? Blackout dates. Stash has no blackout dates. They hated that their points expire. Stash points never expire. Hoteliers didn't like getting paid only a fraction of the value of a room when someone redeems. That's never the case with Stash. Our partners are paid the full amount that they set, whatever rate they set for redemptions. And that's in part because of some innovation we did in terms of allowing for yield management on the redemption side, which is unique in the industry. So you had these 4 wonderful hotels in Seattle. Now with Stash, people can earn points there and they're back in the consideration set. And indeed they are. These are all Stash partners and have been for many years. A number of them are owned by Columbia Hospitality. Every time Columbia adds a hotel, or even before they take on a management of a hotel, they'll call us and say, is this one going to make the cut? They're a terrific management company in the Pacific Northwest. Again, it was something of an obvious idea. And when we would talk to travelers about Stash, we often would hear, oh, thank goodness. I love independent hotels. And if I have to stay at another Marriott, I'm going to flip out. I heard a guy I was talking to on an airplane said, I'm a Marriott loyalist and I went on vacation and I sat in, checked into my room and I turned on the TV and it was the same welcome screen that in every other Marriott hotel that I'd stayed at, and I couldn't handle it. I got out of the hotel. He just left. So we are young and we are small, but we're mighty. We are often ranked next to or above the major rewards programs in terms of preference of guests and other measures of value. This has something to do with the fact that we don't have expiration dates on points and that you can redeem in any room. But really the main factor here is the hotels. The hotels are better. The hotels in Stash have higher ratings, are more loved than any set of hotels in any major loyalty program, period. And that is, those guest experiences aren't based on Stash. It's only that we are focused on adding extraordinary independent hotels. You hear a theme here, right? They say you can't brag about your kids, right? You can brag about other people's kids. So we think of the hotels in Stash as other people's kids that we love and are very proud of. Henry Howard Hotel is number 3 out of 200 hotels in New Orleans. It is an old manor in the Garden District. That front desk turns into a bar in the evening. Stonehurst Place is the #1 lodging option on TripAdvisor in Atlanta, higher rated than the Four Seasons, than the Ritz, than anything else. Run by Barb Shadami, who has turned this into her. It has a private collection of her art, run by a pair of innkeepers who, by the time you're leaving, you have a lump in your throat. They give you a hug goodbye at the front door, and then they walk you to the car and give you a hug goodbye there. This happened to me. It's like, there's no way that a Marriott could do this, right? There's nothing in their 400-page book that says that they could replicate John and Grace, real people running a hotel in a way that a chain never could. Ivy's Hotel is a good example of a Stash partner in an important business center, right? These are programs that frequent travelers seek out, and Charlotte has very few independent hotels. Ivy's is one of the 2 or 3, again, top rated number 1 or 2 in that city. And so now you've traveled between these hotels on business and are dreaming of using your points at a hotel like Hermitage Bay. This is the #1 rated hotel in the entire country I realize I've been saying this wrong, in Antigua, or is Antigua, I don't know. And run again by a couple who said they were in finance. They said, enough of that. We're going to go create extraordinary guest experiences in a place we love. The hotel, the plunge pools are great. The view is beautiful. You read the reviews, it's all about the people. And the guy who runs this property is very focused on empowering his staff and saying, do whatever it takes to make this the best experience for guests. I could go on and on. Driving direct bookings. I have rarely run into an independent hotel, especially right now, that is very happy with their OTA share. Every booking that goes through Expedia is, 18% of revenue out of your pocket. And every time you can turn that person into a direct booker, that drops right to your bottom line, right? Because there's no additional cost there. You're only just saving the money. And really, Expedia adds nothing to this equation. But let me ask you a question. How are you guiding your guests to book direct? How are you making sure that people who book through an OTA come back and book direct the next time? Do the folks on the phone have a strategy for that? Because of course you can't undercut Expedia. Has anyone figured out a smart way to do this? Perhaps. I know that there's some folks that will drop cards in, slide them under the door, or have specials, or sort of try to dodge parity with special rates, but few of those are often sustainable. Again, the number one reason people book direct is to earn points. The chains have trained travelers. So Stash allows you effectively to dodge parity agreements, right? To give something to a guest that is more than the value, or at least equal to the value that they're getting through Expedia, and equal to the value of what they would get at a chain property. One of the things that our partners can do with Stash, we say, just say no to repeat OTA guests. You should never have a repeat OTA guest. Convert them to a direct booker. It's the easiest way to increase RevPAR at your property. And with Stash, you can do that. A member only earns points, or a guest only earns points if they book direct. But if they don't book direct, tell them about Stash, enroll them, and say you get double points next time you book if you book direct. And in that way, 80% of OTA guests convert to direct bookers. Again, that alone would be medicine that would be a standalone business if you can fix that gap. Hotels, we were just about to publish this calculator. Many hoteliers aren't aware of just how much they're paying through OTAs, right? Because the cost is hidden in your ADR, but it's an enormous cost. Competing with chains. This goes back to the frequent traveler and people seeking out chain hotels, because increasingly they mimic and provide, at least on the surface, the benefits and appeal of an independent. When we have millions and millions of dollars or win the lottery, my dream is to sue the hotels and to say you are using this false advertising. In the same way that if a Cisco truck, the giant provider of restaurant food, or a Safeway truck pulls up to a farmer's market and puts up a sign saying Tim's Organic Farm, right, and puts on 2 straw hats and tries to sell themselves as a farmer's market organic food. That's not correct, right? People go to farmers markets to help little farmers, small farms, right? And they pay more because of that. And pretending that because you really, really want to have that brand equity or that sense of purpose, doesn't mean you can pretend that that's what you are if you're not. And the chains all call their collections, all call the independent hotels, they're independent hotels. They're not. Once you sign a franchise agreement, you are no longer an independent hotel by definition. So stop lying about that. I just need to find a law firm willing to do that for free. Here's an example of a hotel that used Stash to compete and really level the playing field with the chains that it was surrounded by. The Hotel Arundel Preserve, a great independent hotel near BWI in Baltimore, the Maryland area, and surrounded by chains. A better hotel, but these guests would tell April Callahan, I can't stay with you guys, I need to earn my points. So once April had points, the playing field was leveled. And then she's competing on guest experience and the quality of her hotel, and she wins. We have a gathering every year called the Stash Summit. And at our opening reception, April said to me, joining Stash is the smartest thing we've ever done. It saved us. And I had her write that down on a napkin and sign it because I love this quote. And this is a good example. Now, the dynamics of her business, probably very different than the hotels that partner with rezStream and then the folks on the phone. And that's one of the things about Stash. It's sort of like aspirin, right? You might take aspirin for a headache. You might take it because you're worried about a stroke, or you might take it because of, I know there's a third reason to take aspirin, some other reason, right? But it depends on what your need is. Attracting new guests. This is a part of Stash that I think is particularly relevant for smaller properties. So here in this snapshot that we've created, there are a number of fans of independent hotels. And I don't know if it's easy for folks on the phone to recognize them. For Stash, we know them. We're able to see in a population of all the travelers in the US, we know 1 million travelers who love independent hotels. And I'm not aware of any other way that a hotel can reach into the universe and find people who seek out independent hotels and say to them, we have a wonderful independent hotel that you may not know about, come and stay with us. I don't know any other way. Expedia or Google, that's not a strategy. That's just using their tools, and often too late, right? They're going to extract enormous value. But what Stash has created, operating almost as a co-op, is Hotel Under in Seattle and the Lenox Hotel in Boston effectively have said, hey, people who stay at my hotel would love your hotel. Why don't we share a guest list? Why don't we make sure we can introduce those guests to each other? And in doing so, we all benefit. So we operate as a near cooperative in that way, where the hotels contribute their guests, but in a way that obviously protects data and privacy, but allows these hotels to essentially refer their best guests to each other. As I mentioned, we have more than 1 million members. We've done that. We've spent, I think, a total of $52 on Google AdWords. It's never been our model. Our model is that the hotels in the program enroll their best guests. And that's why the character of the average Stash traveler is so appealing and fits so well with the ideal guests at many of our partners. So the average Stash member travels 38 nights a year. The top 20% spend 80 nights a year in a hotel, obviously pre-pandemic. They skew affluent, far more affluent than the national average. And they're actually often older than one might first imagine when you think of boutique hotels and millennial and all that talk about that. And we think that's because these are folks later in their career. They obviously have more money. They're less price sensitive, and they're interested in staying at interesting hotels. And they can say to their corporate travel group, I'll stay wherever I want. I'm the SVP of marketing. I'm not going to follow the guidelines here. And then they're also highly educated, 3 times the average in master's degrees, and much more often college educated. I don't know if folks on the phone have done surveys of their guests like this, but these probably start to look like the people staying at your hotels. So one of the ways, the way that this works, the way that our partners are able to attract new guests through Stash is, obviously I joined Stash, I sign up at Stash, let's say at the Henry Howard Hotel, and then I'm traveling to the Bay Area and I want to seek out a hotel to earn points, sure, but really what Stash has become even more is sort of a good housekeeping seal of approval, or an index of extraordinary independent hotels. And you'll see that again and again in reviews that our members send us. You'll see it on TripAdvisor, where someone will say, I loved the Henry Howard and I was traveling to the Bay Area and looking for a hotel with a similar spirit. Again, not the exact same lobby and the exact same guest experience, but of the same independent character. Here in this example, all the dots on the map are hotels in the network where someone signed up who subsequently stayed at that hotel in Silicon Valley, who, if you did the math, the coincidental overlap is perhaps 5%. And you can also see this in the further travel behavior of these guests, where you can see them selecting Stash partners. Here's another example of how that's working. The Red Lion Inn is one of our partners in the Berkshires. This is the revenue they've received from guests who enrolled at other New England hotels during, I think, a 2-year period. And again, these are guests who may have found out about the Red Lion through email marketing we do, or they use Stash as the search tool for finding a hotel, or they see when they're searching for hotels that it's part of Stash, and that becomes the method that they decide, with which they decide that they're going to go stay there. And we're able to look into the data of individual travelers as well and see people moving between our partners, making sure that they can earn their points. So these are all hotels in our network. And here's a traveler who first enrolled at one of our partners in New Orleans and then bounced between Stash hotels throughout the US, and then ultimately ended up at Planters Inn. To Planters Inn, they're just like, oh, he just walked off the street. I don't even know if it was important, if Stash was important. If you look behind the data, you can see they're actively choosing hotels based on their affiliation. All of our partners receive a microsite on our site where people can learn about the hotel. The partner hotel can load a member rate, which can be below parity because it's a special club. And a member can go ahead and book the hotel on our site. We then pass that booking to our partner at 25% commission. We actually at 0% commission. We are, I believe, the only travel site on the internet that passes qualified leads and actually bookings to another party for no costs. We do that because, again, we operate almost as a near cooperative, and our view is we're asking you to sign up your guests. We don't think it's right for us then to charge you above and beyond for the transaction that may have occurred through your commitment to the program, enrolling your members. We'll send out emails on behalf of our partners. They can be member wide or to the whole program, or special deals may be sent out to specific feeder markets. Here's a feeder market email that went out to members in New England that's saying, come and check out Hotel Providence, you'll get double points. And in the TripAdvisor review, here's a guest saying, I found out about this hotel. I decided to stay there because I heard about it through Stash. I wasn't even intending to go anywhere, but I love Stash hotels, and this is where I chose to go because of I learned about Hotel Providence because of its affiliation, and that's what got me off the couch. I'm going to pause there. We typically also talk about groups and meetings, but I think that's less of a part of the business of most of the folks on the phone. In that part of the world, we have discovered that points play an enormous role when a meeting planner, whether it's for a corporate event or even for a social event like a wedding, the meeting planners, in some cases that could be the bride, can be influenced by points given by the hotel to that planner. And in doing that, the returns are unbelievable, where $1,000 in points can yield $50,000 in incremental business. Those numbers all reported by our partners. So that's a part of the business that is increasingly important, but I'm going to skip here. I next go into just a quick overview of how the program works in a couple slides, but is there parts of that general overview that people have particular questions on?
I just wanted to chime in. This is Jeff with rezStream here. I just wanted to chime in on how rezStream plays a part in this too. So if you are a Stash Rewards member, property partner, we have a report that we send, they subscribe to, so that every day we will send the departures for that day. If they're enrolled, if they're a Stash Rewards member, they'll get points. So it's kind of automatic when your property is a partner that they'll get their points for their stays.
That's a great lead in to just, yeah, the behind the scenes. So again, we integrate with nearly all the PMS systems that hoteliers are using, certainly rezStream's products. And the way this works is if I go and I check into Hotel Andra and pay $200, I'll earn 5 points per dollar. But I won't if I book through an OTA. And if I weren't a Stash member when I checked in, the front desk can enroll me. The front desk agent would get 100 points, and we then pay for the points for the first night of that guest for the during that stay. So there's no costs to the hotel. And again, that's one of the ways that we've encouraged our partners to enroll their guests. Then when I check out, when that guest checks out, those points are dropped into their account, and then the hotel is billed for the cost of those points. On average, that cost turns out to be about 5% of Stash member room revenue, and compare that to 18% through Expedia. Additionally, Stash member ADR is typically 10 to 15% higher than the ADR of bookings of other direct bookers at a hotel, not just their OTA bookers, but their direct bookers. And that, I think, it goes back to the, again, higher income folks, less price sensitive, willing to pay more. And then redeeming is really easy too. A hotel loads rates into Stash using their channel management system. Those points are then converted. The cost in dollars is converted to points. A member comes in and redeems, and then the hotel is paid in cash for whatever rate they set. That's it. There's no games about occupancy. If you've ever worked at or talked to someone who runs a chain property, they hate redemptions because they're only paid, 20% of the ADR in a night unless they're at 98% occupancy. That study that I started with, that was actually about Stash. Stash is the only loyalty program that's ever been proven by a third party through a rigorous statistical study to work. Our members, after joining Stash, stay 50% more often and spend $780 more per year. If you've worked at a chain, you may have heard of the study before, because the chains use the study about Stash to justify their programs to their owners. Oddly, they never mentioned that study was about Stash and not about their programs. Pricing is Stash, it really couldn't be any cheaper. You only pay for the points that you're awarding to guests who either have already enrolled at another hotel and now are staying at your property after booking direct. Or you enroll and this person comes back and is coming back more often because of the program. The total cost turns out to be less than 0.5% of a hotel's room revenue. Our quick math is Stash costs about half of one night of room revenue for a hotel. And that includes nearly all the marketing we provide, the website, the collateral, dedicated support, et cetera. And just quickly, again, there's an onboarding cost, but that's being waived until the end of the year because of COVID, that $4,500, and we're waiving the annual fee in our 3-year agreement until the end of the year. So in our 3-year term, the only thing you're paying for is the points, which always are connected to incremental revenue of a Stash member who you almost certainly have never seen before checking into your hotel. So as far as I know, it's not possible for Stash not to have a positive incremental accretive value to a hotel. All right, I'm going to stop there. I already showed that, and I talked a lot. That's it. But we're at 52. Questions from anyone?
You made it just in time. I do want to remind people, you can unmute. I believe you can unmute, ask questions. You can post any questions in the Q&A. Also, there will be a survey at the end here. So when we leave the webinar, if you could please fill out the survey. I think we also email that, but it literally should take you less than 2 minutes, if that, to fill out the survey too on the webinar. So anybody has any questions, fire away. We'll probably give it here a little bit. And then if not, we will talk to you soon, hopefully. So anybody have any questions?
I believe that some of the folks on the phone are already talking to some of my colleagues, so they may have heard a lot of this already. If not, we can develop a custom ROI for your property and talk to you more about the impact of Stash. It's very easy, and then we won't bug you if you're not interested. And the other thing I always say to anyone thinking about Stash is don't believe anything I say, but talk to people in the program, talk to partners who have been in this for 10 years and why they work with us. And I'd say you'll hear that it's more than the value we bring. We are obsessed as well with being the opposite of Expedia, the anti-OTA and the anti-Marriott. We never tell our partners what to do. That's counter to the whole entire notion of being an independent hotel. And then finally, and I don't have a picture of this, going back to the measure of loyalty and the commitment our partners have to Stash, we had a partner who tattooed the Stash logo, got a tattoo of the Stash logo, though she told me that she couldn't show it to me. So I love that as an example, again, of loyalty to Stash. And we find that commitment in part because we operate in the same way that a lot of our partners operate as very focused, independent hospitality professionals. All right.
All right. Well, yeah. So I don't think we have any questions. Again, on the survey, one of the questions was if you're interested, share your email, phone number as well. But otherwise, thank you for your attendance. And this was recorded, so we will be sharing that as well in case you wanted to recap anything. So appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.